Across some of the harshest landscapes on Earth, railroads stretch across land where survival is never guaranteed. From the Mojave Desert to the vast expanse of the Sahara Desert, steel rails cut through heat, sand, and distance. Here, temperatures soar, water is scarce, and the ground itself is always shifting. Yet for more than a century, trains have continued to cross these dry lands, moving goods, connecting cities, and shaping entire regions. From North America to Africa to Asia and Australia, desert railroading is a global achievement. From the age of steam to today's high-speed networks, railroads have adapted to one of the most demanding environments on Earth.
The desert has always been a land of extremes, an ocean of shifting dunes and sun-baked rock that isolated civilizations for millennia. It is a place that refuses to be tamed, where the wind erases tracks and the sun punishes the bold. But where nature built walls, humanity built rails. This is the story of how fire and steel first struck a bargain with the sand. Long before the first hiss of steam, the desert was a laboratory for the physics of transport. In ancient Egypt, the construction of the Great Pyramids required moving millions of tons of limestone across the Giza Plateau. The Egyptians didn't use wheels, they used massive wooden sledges. To defeat the friction that would have buried a dry runner in the sand, a worker stood at the front, pouring water just ahead of the wood. This dampening effect created a slick, firm surface, a proto-rail of sorts. It was humanity's first lesson in load management. To move the impossible across the desert, you must first master the surface beneath it.
The saga begins in 1854 in the sands of Egypt. Robert Stephenson, son of the father of railways, laid the first standard gauge track in a non-European Mediterranean territory. Connecting Alexandria to Cairo, this 209-kilometer line was a tactical lifeline for the British Empire, securing the overland route to India decades before the Suez Canal would do the same by sea. Across the Atlantic, the American West was a landscape of impossible scale. The Central Pacific, CP, and Southern Pacific, SP, were the architects of this era. Building east from Sacramento, the CP faced 90-degree heat in the Nevada desert. Workers, largely Chinese immigrants, battled dehydration in the desert. They laid track with military precision, meeting the Union Pacific at Promontory, Utah in 1869. Southern Pacific, known for the Sunset Route, the SP conquered the Mojave and Sonoran deserts. In 1876, they built the Tehachapi Loop, a spiral feat of engineering that allowed heavy trains to climb the steep pass into the desert. It reached El Paso of the Chihuahuan Desert. Chartered in 1859, the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe followed the ruts of the old Santa Fe Trail. Bypassing the town of Santa Fe due to terrain, they instead conquered Raton Pass, a grueling 3.5% grade that required specialized helper locomotives to push trains over the divide into the New Mexico high desert.
In the heart of the Great Basin, smaller railroads became the lifeblood of mining booms. Virginia and Truckee, the V&T, the queen of the short lines, completed in 1870 to serve the Comstock lode. It was so winding it was called the crookedest railroad in the world, making 17 full circles in just 13.5 miles to descend from Virginia City to the Carson River Mills. Eureka and Palisade, a 3-foot narrow-gauge line built in 1875. It stretched 84 miles to haul silver-lead ore. Its ornate brass-domed locomotives, like the surviving Eureka, were masterpieces of 19th-century industrial art. Carson and Colorado, a 300-mile narrow-gauge line built in 1880, completed 3 years later. When financier D.O. Mills saw the desolate route, he famously remarked,
"Gentlemen, we either built this railroad 300 miles too long or 300 years too soon."
It snaked through the Owens Valley, surviving on dreams of mineral wealth that often vanished as quickly as they appeared.
While the Americans pushed west, the Russian Empire pushed south into the Trans-Caspian. Trans-Caspian Railway. Started in 1879, it was a purely military enterprise. Under General Annenkov, the line reached Samarkand in 1888. It was a logistical nightmare. Engineers had to plant desert shrubs and oil the dunes to prevent the wind from burying the tracks.
Until a permanent bridge over the Amu Darya was built in 1901, trains crossed on a rickety wooden structure that was frequently swept away by floods. In the driest place on Earth, the Atacama Desert, railways were built for white gold. Nitrate railways. Chile's first line, the Copiapó Caldera, 1851, was built by American William Wheelwright to haul silver. Later, a vast network of nitrate railways, like the Agua Santa, 1890, used inclined planes to lower minerals thousands of feet down steep coastal cliffs to the ports. In a land with no rain, engineers had to build massive solar stills to create fresh water for their steam boilers. In India, the Rajputana Malwa Railway, 1876, carved through the Thar Desert, becoming the world's longest meter-gauge system by the 1880s. It was here that India built its first indigenous locomotive, the F734, in 1895.
Under German colonial rule, the Swakopmund Windhoek Line, 1897, was built in response to a rinderpest epidemic that killed the ox teams. It was a 600mm narrow-gauge Staatsbahn that turned a 10-day trek into a 2-day journey, though the trains were so slow that travelers had to stay overnight at midway stations.
In the late 19th century, Australia's push into the desert was a desperate gamble against heat and distance. Starting in 1878, South Australia began the Great Northern Railway from Port Augusta, opting for a 3-foot 6-inch narrow gauge to navigate the rugged Flinders Ranges and the shifting salt pans of the interior. This iron road relied on Afghan cameleers to haul supplies where steam engines couldn't yet reach, eventually pushing the tracks to Oodnadatta by 1891. It was a grueling era of engineering where locomotives survived only by hopping between ancient artesian springs, laying the foundation for the legendary Ghan and the eventual straight-line conquest of the Nullarbor Plain.
As the 1900s dawned, the newly federated Australia made a bold promise to bridge the continent. In 1917, the Trans-Australian Railway finally linked the goldfields of Kalgoorlie to the southern coast. To do it, engineers conquered the Nullarbor Plain, laying a section of track so perfectly level it remains the world's longest straight, 478 kilometers of iron without a single curve. Meanwhile, the old Afghan Express, the Ghan, pushed further into the red center, reaching Alice Springs in 1929, finally replacing the camel trains with the roar of steam and eventually the dominance of diesel. In the American West, the 20th century turned desert outposts into empires. In 1905, the San Pedro, Los Angeles, and Salt Lake Railroad established a tiny watering hole called Las Vegas. The Santa Fe and Southern Pacific shifted from survival to speed, introducing the Super Chief and Daylight Expresses. As steam gave way to the diesel era in the 1940s, the need for massive water stops vanished, allowing mile-long freight trains to thrum through the Mojave and the Sonoran deserts without stopping for a single breath of water.
In 1900, the Ottoman Empire began the Hejaz Railway, a 1,300-kilometer line built to carry pilgrims from Damascus to Medina. It was an engineering marvel that turned a 40-day camel trek into a 5-day journey. But the desert is a harsh witness to war. During World War I, the line became a graveyard for locomotives, famously sabotaged by T.E. Lawrence and Arab forces. By the 1920s, much of the southern track lay in ruins, preserved by the dry air. As time marched on, the desert became home to the world's heaviest haulers. In the Atacama, the Chilean Antofagasta and Bolivia Railway shifted from nitrates to copper, hauling millions of tons from 13,000 feet down to the sea. In the Sahara, the Mauritania Railway, built in 1963, began operating trains up to 3 kilometers long, massive serpents of iron ore moving through a landscape of shifting dunes and 120-degree heat, battling shifting sands and harsh conditions.
In the American West, the desert remains the ultimate proving ground for heavy-haul logistics. Today, Class 1 giants like BNSF and Union Pacific operate the world's most advanced freight networks. These massive intermodal trains, sometimes stretching over 2 miles long, thrum across the Mojave and Sonoran deserts, carrying the heartbeat of global trade. In 2026, BNSF has committed $3.6 billion to modernize this infrastructure, including the massive Barstow International Gateway in California and a new logistics park in Phoenix to streamline the flow of cargo across the arid interior. Meanwhile, Brightline West has broken ground on a 200-mile-per-hour electric link through the Mojave, aiming to redefine desert travel. The Arabian Peninsula has become the world's most aggressive frontier for desert rail. The Saudi Land Bridge. This $7 billion project is currently tearing through the desert to create a 1,500-kilometer east-west corridor. By linking the Red Sea directly to the Arabian Gulf, it aims to bypass the Strait of Hormuz and potentially rival the Suez Canal for global trade speed. The North-South Railway. In March 2026, Saudi Arabia Railways, SAR, launched a massive new international freight route. These trains, hauling over 400 containers each, now link eastern ports directly to the Jordan border, cutting transit times in half and solidifying the kingdom as a global logistics hub. From the 3-kilometer-long ore trains of the Mauritania Railway to the autonomous auto-haul systems of the Australian Pilbara, desert rail is now a high-tech survival game. In Mauritania, the Sahara Express remains a vital lifeline, while in Australia, mining titans like Rio Tinto and BHP operate fully autonomous trains across the outback, hauling the world's iron through the red dust without a human hand at the controls. The future is written in steel. By 2030, the GCC Railway will unify 6 Gulf nations, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, the UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, and Oman, into a single 2,117-kilometer network. In Africa, Egypt's high-speed line is pushing toward Abu Simbel with plans to extend across the border into Sudan. From the solar-shielded cars of the UAE to the heavy-haul monsters of the Sahara, the journey that began in 1854 is no longer about just crossing the sand, it is about defining the future of civilization within it.
That does it for this episode of Desert Railroading. Like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for when new videos are uploaded.